Radio.
Hello and welcome to Cryptocurrent, the only podcast to bring you beginner and advanced knowledge of cryptocurrency and blockchain, analyses of cryptocurrency markets, and discussions on growing a business within the crypto space. Stay tuned and stay cryptocurrent.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent, your host here. And today I have a very special guest that I recently met through a mutual connection. And it has been pretty remarkable to be able to have multiple conversations here about all the amazing things that he's been able to do. So without further ado, I have Yuri Cataldo, and he has so many different interesting projects that I want him to be able to explain them all. But Yuri, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background.
Sure. I'll do the short version. I'm a classically trained set and costume designer who has run some companies. So on my design side, actually, in my early design days, I actually worked on Broadway. I've worked in opera houses, on some major motion picture films, as well as theater productions. I've run a couple of companies, one of which was a bottled water company. After that, I helped build a entrepreneurship program for a university. I've helped launch some technology products, and then now I co-written a book, and I also work for a large tech company in the innovation space. Do a lot of research on what's happening in the future of work and where the construction industry is headed.
Yeah, so basically an underachiever.
I like to joke how lazy I really am, but yeah, it's I like to keep busy is the best way to describe it, and a lot of what I've done honestly has been out of necessity, but having an arts background actually has helped me the most because it taught me early on how to be flexible and adaptable, and that's what I have just been doing over the last few years.
No, but seriously, man, that's amazing. And it's incredible that you've been able to accomplish as much as you have in the time that you have, but you also have such a unique background, which has given you a really interesting outlook on the various industries that you've been working in. And especially, I remember you telling me how you even got into cryptocurrency and blockchain. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. So I was introduced to cryptocurrency and blockchain twice. So the first time was in 2014, and it was a marketing stunt, basically. And I had no idea what any of it actually meant. I had just read about the author, James Altucher. He had just released this new book, and he was only accepting Bitcoin, and he was getting press everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I have no idea what Bitcoin is. I asked some of my more technology focused friends, and they were like, oh, it's not backed by anything. So, who knows what's going to happen with it. I was like, okay, well, so I won't spend a bunch of money on it, but I'll set everything up. So I set up a wallet. I knew that much, at least. Set up a wallet, wrote some copy about this, officially became the first bottled water in the world to accept Bitcoin, and received some great press, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got zero sales whatsoever.
Oh.
So I forgot about it for a while. And then in 2016, I was at a conference, normal type of business conference. And then Ned, I forget his last name, he was one of the founders of Steemit. He spoke about what Steemit was and what they were working on. And that's when I was reintroduced to the world of cryptocurrency and blockchain. And he did a wonderful job of explaining why Steemit existed, what cryptocurrency is, what blockchain is, what the future prospects would be. And I started going down the rabbit hole very, very deep and quickly, starting in 2016.
Wow. So now you're getting re-engaged back into it, and you're like, okay, there's some legs to this. And you start, spinning out some content. You start working with some various projects, and you are even now in the process of co-writing a book called Be Left Behind. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and like what inspired you to write this?
Sure, of course. So it's with my my co-author. His name is Steve Good. So Steve and I started working on, let's say, our mutual projects in 2017. And he was creating a company at that time, a blockchain cryptocurrency company, and he needed some marketing help. And so I jumped right in because I wanted to learn more by getting my hands dirty, basically, with it. The company didn't do as well as we had hoped, but as part of the marketing idea, I was like, you know what we should do? I'm trying to learn a lot about cryptocurrency and blockchain. Why don't I just interview you and we'll do this whole education series where we bring in other guests. Like you will talk, because he was much deeper involved than I was and understood a lot more than I did. And so we started this podcast called The Coin Chat, and we started at the end of 2017, and it took off and then kind of crashed when a lot of the altcoins crashed, and then that turned into a YouTube show. And a year ago, actually it was May of 2018. I was just chatting with them, and I'm like, I had just spoken at a PR conference, and they had listed me as the blockchain marketing guy, and I was explaining how interesting cryptocurrency and blockchain projects were enticing and building communities. And so I had this round table, and I had like 10 people show up, and the number one question they asked me, they're like, like that's great that they're doing that. Like, can you just teach me just enough so I sound smart to my friends?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay, we can do that. And I was like, well, if I wrote a book about this, would you buy it? And they're like, oh, hell yeah, we would. Like, you've got 10 people right now they gave me their email addresses. They're like, right now, you write this book because it'll be so much easier that way. Then we can read this book and then we can sound smart to our friends. And so I'm driving home and I call up Steve and I'm like, hey, I got this crazy idea. What if we take what we've done the last year and a half and write a book about it? Like write a book that's different, that explains cryptocurrency and blockchain in a way that like my mom and his mom can understand. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's been times where he has probably kicked himself for saying yes to me and my crazy idea. But it's been it's like 18 months or so. Yeah. The book is very nearly done. It's going to come out in November. The date is still to be determined. It's with the final stage of editors right now. But it's been a long process of learning just how the publishing world works and how all that gets stuff done. But it's been an absolutely amazing ride where we've rewritten this book at least a dozen times.
Wow. But kudos to you for getting close to the launch date. The grind of launching a book and the iterations and all the things, like I personally have created a book before, and I just understand like what goes into making one. But then also, I'm sure with you having to do like hardcover and all the other kind of stuff of like making a cover and then like all the other things. Just congrats on getting to the finish line.
Thank you. Again, we're nearly there, and yeah, it's with working with the designer for the cover, and it's a little bit, it's one of those, again, things where you kind of learn, you don't really understand it until you get in the middle of it. Because of my background in design, I have a very strong visual language, and some other people on the team that I'm working with, their language it's different. So when we talk about like just like the meaning of colors, it's a very interesting conversation because I've had to learn to re-describe and re-describe and kind of focus on how I am discussing design and colors and texture and meaning and expanding my vocabulary of just design, which is absolutely, so that's something like you would actually have to focus on when writing a book, but that's the stage I'm in right now.
No doubt. And I mean, that kind of brings up a really good transition into like the education piece of cryptocurrency, but in anything, right? When you're trying to educate someone, you have to be able to put in their own language or in a way that they can understand and receive the information that you're trying to give. Mm-hmm. And so I know that, education is extremely important in this cryptocurrency space and blockchain space, and that you've been doing it through your podcast, Coin Chat, and now through your book, Be Left Behind. But what have you learned through doing your podcast and your YouTube videos of just either interviewing or just learning deeply that you are trying to make sure that you can educate and share with others?
Yeah. Education has always been the forefront of what we've done at the Coin Shop and now at the book Be Left Behind. And what the biggest lessons we've learned is, and this was partially from our own struggles, and especially my own struggle. So my background's in art, it's in theater. I wouldn't call myself the most technically knowledgeable individual. Like I don't know how to code, but spend a lot of time reading a lot of books. When I was first being introduced into the space, a lot of the articles, a lot of the YouTube videos that were being put out were by people who understood the space and they were highly technical. And so they were describing in a way that made sense to them, but was completely foreign to me. As my editor likes to put it, she's like, nope, guys, this whole section just reads like Mandarin to me. And so what we've especially been focused on and have, when we do interviews with people who a little more are technical, we ask leading questions again and again and again and try to get them to break it down in a way where our audience can understand. And our audience is more of the average person who really wants to understand the space but doesn't come from a technical background. And so that's really been a key focus for us in the book and in the podcast is breaking difficult subjects down into bite-sized pieces that make sense, but also don't like talk down to our audience. Like we don't do that. It's a disservice for everybody. We just speak in the vernacular that our audience speaks in. And so that's been a really key focus and goal of ours in our interviews as well as all the information that we put out.
Absolutely. And it's essential that you do that because, especially not talking down, because I know when I initially got into the space and I was starting, like you did, look up different articles, YouTube videos, XYZ, and the technical people who come on, or even the people who weren't so technical were like talking very matter of factly and like as everything was fact. It just rubbed me the wrong way. And so that was another reason why I wanted to create Cryptocurrent, was to have that friendly / like being able to talk to in the vernacular and bridge the gap between people who know nothing and are thought leaders, and get them both on level ground. And so I completely understand and agree with the reasoning of why you've decided to make this book and write it the way that you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's also the idea of, so everyone likes to talk about like when will cryptocurrency adoption and blockchain adoption and Bitcoin adoption happen? You know, in order for that to happen, the average person needs to understand it and want to use it. If it's this weird technical jargon, nobody's going to want to touch it because it's intimidating. You have to be able to, have your grandmother understand it and go, yeah, that's not a problem. Like, here's my Bitcoin wallet. Let me send you some coins. Like, once we start getting to that level, then it will become more and more mainstream.
Definitely. Absolutely. And so you've been in this space for a while now, and for a couple of years, and I know that you've been through a couple of conferences and have just been in the space. But what are some of the different projects that you've either seen or heard of that has you excited?
Sure. So I've been a bit heads down the last few months, and so I'm not as current and up to date as I would like to be on some of this. So my favorite, so I guess I have to first do I am not a financial advisor. This is just, don't listen to me for any kind of financial advice. Yeah. My co-author and I are kind of working through that right now. So I'm extra careful about that. So non-financial advice, but some of the projects that I'm excited about. So I love the tokenomics of what Binance has done. And so the Binance platform and exchange itself has its own token, the BNB coin, which has dropped a lot back to kind of where it was in the beginning of the year. But their business model of having an exchange, being a very well regulated and sought after exchange, and then having their own launch platform where they're able to take smaller projects and then get people to invest in them. I'm fascinated by that type of approach, and so I really like what Binance is doing, and I'm excited for them to expand even more. I haven't jumped into the Binance USA side yet, but I'm interested in what that's doing. So there's another project called Theta Token that I think is really interesting, and they're trying to create this new, it's like a video platform. It's kind of going to be like a better version of YouTube, which a lot of people are trying to do, just decentralized YouTube. But what's exciting about that is, their team is really good. So they've got YouTube, people from who are YouTube, from YouTube, from large areas, Sony and Twitch and Microsoft. Those are their advisors, those are their partners. And so what I'm interested about this company particularly is that they're some of the like cryptocurrency projects that Steve and I covered in the early, say, 2017 area were kind of fly by night, where it was like, let's take an idea, let's put it out there, let's raise a bunch of money, and then we'll wait and see. And a lot of those companies have crashed because they're startups who had a really interesting idea, but no real roadmap and business acumen. And I'm looking at Binance, I'm looking at Theta Coin, and they have got the opposite. Like, they've taken their time, they've got a good business team in line, they've got good leadership, good advisors, partnerships. They're approaching these like an actual business. And so those are my two favorites. I don't know whether coins are trading at right now, but as companies, I'm looking at them long term, and they are definitely viable companies long term.
Yeah, and I think those are. Thank you for bringing both of those to everyone's attention. But at the same time, too, when you look at opportunities, I think you have to look at viability as well. Just like you said, I mean, beginning of 2017, all of a sudden you have a couple hundred cryptocurrencies, then it jumps up to almost 2,000. Like, of course, most of them are going to crash. Just flying by a dream and a lot of money. But the ones that are sticking around, the ones that are raising more money, the ones that are getting more people to use their projects, they're the ones that are going to be amazing in the next years to come. And so I like to look at the teams and infrastructure as well when you look at different opportunities. Within the next year or two, there's a lot that's going on in the space, and there's a lot of things that people are waiting on to see. So what are some things that are on the crypto and blockchain horizon that you're looking out for?
Sure. So the big thing I'm looking out for is, let's say, usability. And so right now, if I want to, send you some coins, I have to get my own wallet, figure out what my keys are, figure out where your wallet address is, and then send you coins. And it's a little bit clunky. Like I said, my grandmother or my mom are never going to do that. They don't like the idea of being in their own bank. So what I'm interested is use cases that are, and I know this goes against the, let's say, like the diehards who are like, everything has to be decentralized. But in a certain sense, though, to make it usable, you're going to have to get some middlemen to get this more accessible to the average person. So I'm looking out for wallets that are actually designed for the user first, and usability with good UX design. So there's that. Secondly, the other problem is, so right now, let's say I've got 5 Bitcoin on a wallet. If you get that wallet, then my property now is your value, or is your property. So that's a problem, especially for people who lose things. Which sometimes I do lose some things. So so how do you not tie property to a wallet address, but instead tie it to your identity? So how could I have my identity associated with a wallet, with some, with my coins, my bank account, with my, KYC, a lot of other things, which gets into the data privacy side of it, which can be scary. But if it's done properly, then I don't see why there's not a case for somebody, with their thumb or their fingerprint to go, great, here's my, like a lot of different things that I'm holding on to of value, my assets and property and bank accounts all linked together in this digital wallet that I can then use. Kind of like what WeChat is doing in Asia. It's not quite like that, but a little bit further. But a lot of things are being digitized. There's a lot of companies or a lot of countries around the world to help bank the unbanked are digitizing people's identities because it makes it easier to set up accounts. It makes it easier to buy property. And so that's what I'm looking for. A world where it's easier to use and to get involved in this digital space, and one that's less clunky. But again, that requires us to be trusting of some intermediaries. And I know, like Facebook, I wouldn't trust my bank account to Facebook. I'd really trust my identity to Facebook. So there's still a long way to go. But maybe governments will step up and do this, or maybe corporations. But somewhere in the middle is going to be that ease of use that's going to bring along most of the population.
Yes. And you brought up a good point about governments. There's quite a few governments that are already looking to get into the space right now. I believe China's trying to create their own coin. You have a bunch of other Venezuela already made their own coin, and some others that are trying to like get this going. And it's still early, and there's still a lot that needs to be done for it to be more practical. But just like you said, on the horizon, I think that's a real use case scenario of different companies trying to digitize the currency because it's just more practical and it's quicker, and there's just a ton of use case for it. So thank you for those two tidbits. But Yuri, thank you so much for spending some time with us and dropping this knowledge on us. But before you go, I always ask my speakers to leave a final thought with us. And so I want to now ask you, what is a final thought that you want to leave with all of our listeners?
Well, Richard, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure. My final thought would be to just keep learning. And I say this from my own experience because I never would have thought, even 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I was newly divorced, had just finished, I worked on Broadway, and my Broadway career came to an end because of the economy. I never thought that I would have a second or even third act that would involve me getting involved in starting my own company and then getting involved in technology, or even like sitting here talking with you about a book I had just written. And it's just because I never stopped learning and just kept moving forward. So no matter what you do, just keep moving forward and you'll come out on the other side better and stronger.
Well, y'all heard it. There's nothing for me to add to that, Yuri. That was a great final thought. Very empowering. If y'all didn't get fired up by that, then something's wrong. You need to listen to it again, because that is a really great final thought and one of my favorite that I've heard on the show. So thank you for dropping that on us. But Yuri, what are some different ways that people can connect with you online?
Sure. So I'm very easy to find. So my name is Yuri, last name Cataldo. I think I'm one of only 3 Yuri Cataldos in the world. And so if you Google me, I'm the top one that pops up. My website is yuricataldo.com. I'm Y Cataldo on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. The book is Be Left Behind, all one word, .com. So that's an easy way to get a hold of us. I recommend you go to Be Left Behind and sign up for our newsletter right now so that when the book comes out, we can let you know and send you some tidbits.
Well, perfect. Well, Yuri, thank you so much again for being on the show, and for everyone listening, stay cryptocurrent.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Cryptocurrent. For more information on this episode and all of our episodes, please visit us at www.crypto-current.co. Stay up to date with the latest news in cryptocurrency. You'll receive daily emails Monday through Friday that are personalized and curated content specific to you and your interest, powered by artificial intelligence. Are you an accredited investor looking to invest in cryptocurrency? Crescent City Capital can help. Go to crescentcitycapital.com for more information. If you're finding value in our content, please take 5 minutes to leave a 5-star review and a great comment. Also, please make sure to share this podcast with others. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the quality of this podcast. I can only thank my amazing producer, Andrew DeRitter, with DeRitter Productions, who has put this together. If you have any podcast, visual, or video needs, please go to DeRitterProductions.com. That's DERITTER Productions.com.
This has been another episode of Cryptocurrent, bringing you one step closer to becoming a crypto and blockchain aficionado. We look forward to giving you the latest in crypto news and analyses next week. Stay cryptocurrent.
Please use available exits now.